Hello, friends, and welcome back to April's Cozy Corner. Grab your tea, your coffee, and your blanket, and let's get cozy. Today, we're talking about something many of us never choose, never ask for, and never expect to carry: pain. Not just physical pain, but emotional pain. The kind that lingers, the kind that changes you, the kind that follows you into quiet moments and shows up when you're trying to move forward. Maybe you've experienced heartbreak. Maybe you've experienced betrayal. Maybe you struggle with anxiety, depression, loneliness, grief, rejection, or trauma. Maybe you've spent years trying to understand why certain things happen to you. And maybe you've asked yourself a question that almost every human being asks at some point. What was the point of all of this? Today, I want to explore a different perspective. Not how to erase pain, not how to pretend it never happened, but how we can slowly transform pain into meaning. Because while we can't always choose what happens to us, we can choose what we create from it. And sometimes the most meaningful parts of our lives are built from the very things that once broke our hearts. One of the hardest things about pain is that it changes our perspective. Before a difficult experience, the world often feels predictable. We believe certain things are supposed to happen. We believe certain people are supposed to stay. We believe effort guarantees outcome. We believe life follows a certain script. Then something happens. A relationship ends. Someone betrays us. A dream falls apart. A diagnosis changes everything. And suddenly the world doesn't feel as stable as it once did. Pain introduces uncertainty. It forces us to confront realities we never wanted to see. But something interesting happens as well. Pain can deepen our awareness. People who have never suffered often move through life without questioning much. But suffering makes us ask questions. Why am I here? What matters? Who am I beneath my achievements? What kind of life do I want to build? Pain has a way of stripping away illusions. And while that process can be painful, it can also be transformative. Because once certain illusions disappear, we're forced to build something more genuine in their place. Pain by itself is difficult, but meaninglessness is often even harder. Think about it. People can survive incredible hardships when they believe those hardships serve a purpose. Parents sacrifice for children, students sacrifice for degrees, athletes sacrifice for goals, caregivers sacrifice for loved ones. The struggle itself isn't what breaks people. What often breaks people is believing the struggle means nothing. When we can't find meaning, suffering feels random. It feels unfair. It feels endless. But meaning changes the experience. Meaning doesn't erase pain. Meaning gives pain somewhere to go. Meaning turns wounds into wisdom. Meaning turns scars into stories. Meaning transforms survival into growth. And sometimes meaning isn't found immediately. Sometimes meaning appears years later. Sometimes what feels like devastation becomes the very thing that redirects our lives towards something better. Most of us love comfort. Comfort feels safe. Comfort feels predictable. Comfort feels familiar. But comfort rarely changes us. Growth usually happens when life forces us beyond what feels comfortable. Think about the strongest people you've met. Many of them didn't become strong because life was easy. They became strong because life demanded something different from them. Patience, courage, resilience, faith, adaptability, and compassion. Pain often develops qualities that comfort leaves untouched. A person who has experienced loneliness may become deeply empathetic. A person who has experienced rejection may become more accepting of others. A person who has experienced anxiety may develop profound self-awareness. The wound doesn't automatically create wisdom, but if we remain open to learning, suffering can become a teacher. Not a teacher we asked for, not a teacher we wanted, but sometimes one of the most powerful teachers we'll ever encounter. One of the strange things about healing is that we often don't recognize our own growth. We focus on what still hurts. We focus on where we're struggling. We focus on what we're trying to improve. Meanwhile, we overlook how much we've already survived. Think about the version of yourself from 5 years ago. Think about everything you've carried since then. Think about conversations, the sleepless nights, the disappointments, the heartbreak, the fears, and yet you're still here, still trying, still learning, still growing. There is strength in that. Not the loud kind of strength, not the kind that gets applause, the quiet kind. The kind that gets out of bed when life feels heavy. The kind that keeps moving forward despite uncertainty. The kind that chooses hope one more time. That strength matters. And sometimes pain reveals strengths we never knew we possessed. There is an interesting idea that many people encounter during difficult seasons. What if pain isn't only something happening to you? What if it is also shaping you? Not in a punishment sense, not because you deserve it, but because every experience leaves an imprint. Every challenge asks a question. Who will you become because of this? Will you become bitter or more compassionate? More closed off or more understanding? More fearful or more courageous? Pain doesn't get the final word. Your response does. And while we cannot control every circumstance, we do have influence over who we become in the aftermath. That may be one of the greatest forms of freedom we possess. No matter what life takes from us, it cannot fully determine who we choose to become. One of the most surprising things about pain is that it often points us towards purpose, not immediately, not while we're in the middle of it. When we're hurting, all we usually want is relief. We want answers, we want comfort, we want the pain to stop. But sometimes years later, we look back and realize that our greatest struggles taught us how to help other people. There is something powerful about being understood by someone who has walked a similar road. Advice from a textbook can be helpful, but wisdom born from experience carries a different kind of weight. Some of the most compassionate people you'll ever meet became compassionate because life introduced them to suffering, not because suffering is good, but because suffering expanded their capacity to understand the struggles of others. And sometimes the thing that hurts you becomes the very thing that allows you to help someone else heal. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. If this conversation resonated with you, I'd love to connect with you beyond YouTube. You can find me on Instagram, where I share reflections on healing, anxiety, personal growth, and learning how to create a softer life in a busy world. Until next time, take care of yourself, and thank you for joining me here at April's Cozy Corner.